Hello, everyone. Welcome to the series named Conversation with Kushal once again, or rather, Conversation of Kushal with Kushal. So, today it's going to be a name circus because it's one Kushal hosting the another one. So, Kushal Chand is an MBA graduate from Columbia University and he has also cleared his CA examinations. And now he's working with TPG, which is a global leading investment management firm. So, welcome Kushal on the show and thank you so much for accepting my invitation. It's pleasure having you over here.
Yeah, pleasure being here.
Yep, thanks a lot. So, Kushal, could you just briefly tell us about your professional journey, and then we'll take further questions that leading from your professional journey.
Okay, sure. So just quick background about me before I start off on my professional journey. Grew up in Chennai, and like a typical Marwadi sort of a family, like a business sort of a mindset. Like everyone I know is like works in some of the other family business. And my dad, incidentally, for example, is in textiles. But early on, sort of realized that don't want to continue the family business, so ventured out and started like it was interested in finance. So started off with like undergrad in commerce alongside did my CA. Uh, CA went quite well, got a rank in my intermediate and final examination, but sort of realized audit was not my first love. So tried like a bunch of things, started off with banking, work in Deutsche Bank for a year in the investment banking side. Then switched to consulting, worked with BCG in their Chennai office for again a short time frame, about a year. Then switched to private equity. I think it was a good role that used both these skills and leverage also my interest in finance. So that was spent about 4 years at GIC. That's the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Singapore. Then after that, business school, went to Columbia, graduated in 2020 last year in the middle of the pandemic, and post Columbia joined TPG as you had mentioned. So being close to like 6 to 7 months with TPG right now.
Amazing. That's amazing. So I think it's a dream journey of any qualified professional chartered accountant because even he wants to get into investment banking, then management consulting, and finally it's the private equity, which is like a dream job for each and every qualified professional nowadays, at least. So glad
Yeah,
to
pretty
hear.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much like. I think I like to dabble things around, so that's why I tried a bunch of things. Where I guess as of now, I'd say I've settled in like investing is the journey for now.
Right. Get it. So could you just briefly tell us like how does your typical day look like at TPG and what does your firm do? So how's your work
Okay,
profile over there?
sure. So I'm part of the investment team at TPG. So I'm part of the Capital Asia buyout team. So typically, just as a quick background, TPG is amongst the top 5 private equity firms in the world, manage close to $100 billion of AUM. So that's about the firm. So I work in the India office and with like a PE firms in general are lean, and there's no exception with TPG. My team, the Asia Capital buyout teams, are around 8 members. And my typical role, I would say I straddle between three different work streams. One would be working on live deals, which is like evaluating a particular investment and helping formulate whether to make a decision or making a recommendation whether to invest or not. Second is post-deal execution in terms of portfolio monitoring, in terms of like business as usual stuff in terms of are things going fine, and then strategic stuff looking at M&A or like a IPO or exit sort of aspects. And the finally would be like new deal sourcing. As you get more and more senior, obviously you spend disproportionately higher time in terms of sourcing. So at my stage of my career, it's lesser, but as I get more senior over time, you spend more time over sourcing. So no different from I would say any other typical private equity professional in terms of how we go about like my typical work day. I think it's like like generally a blend of these three. But yeah, things can be pretty volatile in terms of like you over-index on let's say new deal sometimes or over-index on portfolio. But yeah, that's these are probably the three work streams in terms of core work that I do.
Right. And it might be pretty hectic. Like I've heard that in investment banking and management consulting and private equity, you have to work for like 16 hours, 18 hours. When there's live project going on, you also have to slog yourself sometimes to 20 hours a day. So is that what is true in your case as well?
So uh, generally, I would say finance is can be demanding in terms of a work-life balance. But at the same time, if there's a live deal, just so engrossed into it, it doesn't really feel like it's not like you're doing work for FaceTime or you're doing for like no reason whatsoever. I'm sure, irrespective of any industry, if things are at crunch, you will pull in the hours. Luckily, I've been in the team, which is like, I think TPG is brought amongst the best, I think, cultures in the PE funds, not just in India, across the globe. I think they stand out. So there's no real FaceTime culture. And at the same time, I really enjoy my work. So if there is deal work, it's not like people are prescriptive saying like, you have to get this done right now. And there's no external facing client that I have, right? It's all us doing like a deal evaluation, us doing most internal work. Yeah, so it can get a little brutal, I would say, in banking, especially early on in your career. But at the same time, you do learn quite a bit. But it's also your own working style, right? Some people are okay with some volatility in the work hours. But at the same time, it's not sustainable to do 18, 20 hours for like months because your productivity goes down. So I at least don't believe in like FaceTime in terms of that as a culture. But yeah, if there are deals, if there is something crunch, not just, I would say any industry, even the audit, for example, if there is crunch time during signing, I'm sure people pull in the hours. So when there's activity, I think it's part of the job.
Right, I agree. And in fact, I was also reading a recent Goldman Sachs report. So they had stated that on an average, an investment banker usually spends 100 hours working in 1 week. And they had stated in the report that they want to reduce that 100 hours to 80 hours in 1 week, which is also very huge in a span of 5 days.
If yeah, I think that's the US Wall Street culture, I would say. That's I think in banking in the US, that's pretty much the norm. I'm not that familiar if India is that as crazy as the US. But yeah, it can get pretty volatile in terms of hours.
Right.
But frankly, if I look back, when you first start off as an analyst in banking, there is a lot of things that you do probably you think are like not essential, but at the same time, they are like, as in there's a lot of iterations that you go through, etc. And a lot of it is last minute, which you think at that point could have been planned better. So there is that frustration, but at the same time, you do learn on a quite a bit in a short time frame. Like you get like pulled in into the trenches in a very short time frame. So that there is the pros and cons for that.
Right.
But obviously, I am not an advocate of like pushing people to, or personally also wanting to do like kill myself over the long term, because I don't think it's sustainable.
Yeah, right. Get it. So let's say like it's a live deal going on, you have a pretty hectic schedule because of your live deal going on. So how do you unwind after like working?
Yeah, the answer has pretty much changed over the last year, given the pandemic. I would say earlier used to be like, obviously a lot of it like was hang out with friends, go out, etc. That's become lesser. So for me, I think I like running. So I live close to the beach in Chennai. Right now I'm in a different city, so but that's not the case here. But I like running, so that's something that is a lot of fun. Cycling, something I think everyone's really picked up during the pandemic, I would say. And third is just like more like hang out with family and a lot of card games.
Right.
Hopefully, as things open up, I think obviously start going out a lot more. So I've started reading quite a bit more these days, and I'm picking up a different biography a week. So that's like the sort of like helps me calm down and like at the end of a particular hectic day.
Yeah, that's great. Since you spoke about reading, like also you would be reading about some topics on finance and what are the other deals going on in the country, what are their valuations. Like it's important to stay updated with what is going around in our industry, right? So what are some sources of learning, and like what are some of the things which you continuously like read or listen to, which helps you in order to stay updated with current affairs? And a follow-up question on this is how important it is to stay updated with current affairs.
So I'm like a bit of a news junkie. Like I love reading the news. So it's like everyday routine for me to read the FT, read the Wall Street Journal, ET, Ken, Morning Context. Ken and Morning Context more over the weekends because they're long form articles. But I really like like the quality of content in FT and ET, etc. FT is obviously more global focused. It's like so I actually really enjoy reading this stuff. Plus, at the same time, my job in investing allows me access to research reports, institutional research reports. So pretty much I keep having in my inbox every day, like research houses sending stuff. And as and when you find something interesting, flag it off end of the day or whenever I get time to read. Reading is, I think, it's not, you don't do it as a disjoint activity to learn, because I think it's pretty much linked to your own interest in finance. You would, like, let's say SPAC markets, like that thing that everyone's talking about. I think it's just naturally you're curious, like how do you learn? And now the sources are so many. Podcasts, I realize, is probably the best thing to a lot of to sort of, like, when I go for a run, I always pick one podcast and like pretty
Could you
much
suggest
use
some of
that
the
time.
podcasts, like to all the viewers?
Pretty much like the standard stuff. There's Invest Like the Best, which is pretty good.
Yeah,
There's a podcast called Acquired, which I think is really good, especially it's more focused on tech. So my podcast is a little bit more weighted like onto the tech side. Like so there are like there is this Goldman Sachs podcast, which is like a bit of the house view on different things, which also can be pretty interesting. But yeah, so pretty much business sort of oriented sort of podcast is what I sort of like look at. Yeah, but I don't think I look at it as a disjoint activity to like I like reading news is like a good to have. To me, it's like a part of like your professional journey. It's like a like, and over time, as you read over many years, you start contextualizing and get better in terms of like also allocating which time, because you can't be reading the news all the time, right? At the same, so you
right.
need to do some work or two. So you will you get better at over time.
Right, get it. And since you're working in a private equity, you also need to analyze a lot of companies, and you have to take a lot of factors into consideration while deciding whether to invest in this company or not. So what are some of the
Yeah.
factors which you consider before investing in any company?
Got it. Yeah, I think I personally feel like everyone over time builds their own playbook in terms of like what factors they, especially what they weigh more. Pretty much everyone looks at the same sort of finite things, but people may have a different perspective as to how they view it, or they may weigh it differently. So firstly, it's just the usual stuff, the industry, like the attractiveness of the industry that you're looking at, the TAM, the growth rates. Second is just the competitive positioning of the company. Do they have any long-term moats? Like what is a sustainable competitive advantage? Thirdly, you just look at the being a more of a late-stage investor. You probably spend more time looking at how the financial profile looks like at least steady state. You probably are already at steady state in most cases. Just the math, does the returns work out? Fourth is obviously intangible stuff, which is like the management quality, which I think is probably in most people would view as the most important thing that you're, especially if you're backing someone to while investing, is that the governance levels, the quality of the team, how would they behave when things don't go too well? Because most industries go through volatility, some especially a lot more than others. So how have they in the past, empirically you can look at like how in the past have they behaved, what's your gut telling you. I think probably the most difficult to also judge, right? It's like a soft sort of skill, and all leaders in PE usually are great at reading people. So yeah, these are probably like 3-4 key sort of factors that you look at. But yeah, obviously, as I mentioned, you look at the whole package, right? You can't look like everything will have some pros and some cons. At the end of the day, you have to weigh yourself like, is this company something that I would like to own? And then finally, at what price, right? Because
Right.
eventually you need to make your threshold returns.
Right. So eventually, if you're investing, so you're becoming the owner of that company, and therefore you would see it as if it is your own company, and you'll evaluate it from financial as well as non-financial perspective. So get it?
Yes, you should have an ownership mindset. Yes, that's pretty important. Yes.
Right. Get it? So let's go back to your Deutsche Bank and BCG experience also. The question I want to ask now is that what is that one learning you've got from each and every organization like Deutsche Bank, BCG and TPG, which you'll cherish it for your rest of your lifetime? So there might be a lot of learnings, of course, which you've got from all these organizations. But what would be one learning from each and every organization which you'll cherish it?
Yeah, funny enough, in Deutsche Bank, it's actually I learned camaraderie. Like when you're like an investment banking analyst pool, and like as you said, those long hours, etc. Right? Then this happens. You actually see that you have like a great set of camaraderie that actually happens between the cohort, which I think was a pretty valuable sort of friendship that you build. But on the professional side, I would say Deutsche really trained me on the corporate finance side. Like as a CA, I thought our exposure to like hardcore corporate finance is pretty pretty basic. I would say not very sufficient in terms of actual work learning. So I would say the training ground was very strong. I think generally investment banking, their analyst training programs and the work that you actually do in a short time frame, I think that was something that would be very valuable. BCG actually, I think is an incredible place to work at. I really had a good time there. I think if I had to take one takeaway from BCG, was just like I think sharpened my problem solving skills. I think that in terms of structured breaking down and looking at those, looking at aspects in terms of problem solving, that's there. TPG and GIC, I would say broadly in terms of investing, is potentially is like looking at taking a long-term mindset in terms of it's very easy to get swayed by momentum and to look at what's good. If something is going bad, you assume that it's going to continue, and vice versa if something's going good. So like looking to build like not necessary for the sake of it, but potentially a contrarian view, and building your own independent mindset and ownership to take decisions. Right. I think my first two roles were advisory, recommendation oriented, and I think investing is at the end of the day it boils down to taking the decision to go or not go. And I think over time, I think you build better decision making skills, and I think that would be my biggest takeaway from my investing career.
Awesome. So you told that having a long-term growth mindset is very important, and you've learned this from TPG as well as GIC. So I just want to understand, how do these companies react in terms of uncertainties? So for example, the COVID-19 pandemic was hit. So what was the reaction and first step of these companies in terms of their investments which were happening? What was their reaction?
Personally, I was not there in the trenches because I was in school, Columbia, when COVID hit. So I don't have like first-hand sort of like experience, but obviously it's two things, right? One is defend your turf, like make sure that your portfolio is rock solid, and like if there are any areas of improvement, focus on that. Second is obviously, I think a lot of funds have actually opportunistically used this as a time to find great companies who are going through a temporary downturn and look for potential investment opportunities. So I would say last year, actually, generally the industry was pretty high volume of activity. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, if you would have asked the team, probably the deal activity has been substantially a lot more than anticipated. So I wouldn't say that. Basically, you try not to do anything rash, which is what most firms, I think top-notch firms, focus on doing. That it's about taking decisions on a much more like holistic basis after finding out the facts. It's not like knee-jerk reaction.
Right. Get it. Also asking about your CA learnings and MBA learnings in your current work profile. So how would you categorize, like what are some of the CA learnings and what are some of the MBA learnings from Columbia University that are helping you in order to do your day-to-day work at TPG and your work at GIC as well?
So if I look at takeaways from CA, right, it was a while back. Like I graduated when I was like 21, so it was close to like 9 years back. So in terms of, it obviously helps me look at the financial numbers better. Like I've seen like in the articleship, you get very well versed to like looking at numbers and so we get very comfortable on that. So financial analysis becomes, I would say, straightforward. FDD becomes a lot more intuitive. The taxation seems more real, right? When you read tax reports or DD reports, like what do these implications mean, etc. Because having seen partially that or read more about that I think is immensely helpful. So those aspects I think are pretty helpful from the CA perspective. I think Columbia, I would say, is a very, very big school focused on investing, like the value investing program, etc. They have very good courses that I think made me look more from this mindset of like competitive modes, like how do you look at industry structures, etc. Obviously, these are not directly transferable skill sets in terms of like a framework that you can directly apply, but you can think of these as like they help you expand and think of new frameworks as to how to evaluate new investments. So some of the courses were like very, very helpful in this regard. So I would say directly related to work, these were pretty, I would say, interesting. And just one more thing to add, I think in Colombia, it's just meeting very diverse people. Uh, widens your mindset quite a bit. I never really worked abroad for a long period, and living 2 years abroad makes you think life in a like I would say broader perspective that sort of helps.
Right. So like doing an MBA from Colombia helped you in order to get a holistic perspective and not only a perspective of a particular thing. And it might also have
You
helped you in
meet
order to
different
move.
people, you meet different like if you like I mean if you keep doing finance, you keep the similar sort of people who like that. But if you, let's say, meet people with very, very different backgrounds, you at least have a different take on life,
Right.
which can be interesting.
Right. And having that diversity is of utmost significance at this age because I think that will provide a holistic perspective and that is ultimately going to help you move out of your comfort zone. So that's an
Yeah,
important thing.
yeah, yep. I agree. I think anything that can help you push your limits in a good way, it
Right.
can be well.
Right. So speaking about Colombia itself, what would you advise to a person who is like in his articleship phase or who has just cleared his CA exams and he also wants to get into Columbia University after 3-4 years of work experience? So what are some of the advices which you would like to give him so that even he can get into Columbia?
I would just, frankly, I never had plans to do an MBA. Like, I never really had plans to do consulting or PE. It just sort of like worked out. But if you can like charter your plan, like, let's say you're early 20s looking to do an MBA from like an Ivy League school, pretty much you can only focus on what's under your control, which is like doing what you can do and being the best at your job, whichever job you have. Like, obviously, there are some firms which are feeder firms to business schools. Consulting firms, for example, are feeder firms. Obviously, if you can get a foot in the door in a big brand firm, it helps. But irrespective, I think doing very well at your job matters in terms of like making your case stronger. Secondly, obviously, is the GMAT, etc. That's under your control. To the extent possible, incrementally, whatever you can do well in life in terms of your CADs, focus on that. And third is just like be structured about it and like be very clear as to why are you applying, and like be I speak to a lot of people who have like very limited sort of research that they have done when they reach out to me, or like they pretty much have no clue about what they're getting into. I think there's enough resources secondary online, so just do your research and like speak to a lot of people as to like how to go about doing it, and like yeah, plan it around. It's a bit like it's not like a like Indian business school that people who generally go are young. Average age of people at Columbia incoming is like 27. People
Okay.
usually build up a lot of work X.
Right.
And building work X is helpful because it's not like a tick in the box you get it done with. It's more about getting best of the experience. If you go with
Right.
limited work X, you probably may not take as much out of it than you can going later on. So like
Right.
it's not like a yeah, do it whenever you think you're ready. Obviously, if you think you're ready at 24, apply. But yeah, plan it out. Yeah, and you never know how things work. It one so just apply if you're pretty once you have like the basics sorted out. But yeah, just focus on what's under your control. There's no point listening to the noise in terms of like nahi hoga, yahi ho sakta hai, or just
Hmm.
focus on what you can do better from your side. That's the only advice I give.
Right. Amazing. Amazing. You've been in Colombia for a couple of years for your MBA, and like you before that you were staying in India. So you worked in India before your MBA, right? Yeah. So how was this transition of like moving from India to the United States?
Yeah, so obviously this is school, correct? Like it's not the same as intense as work, but it's just that America. So right now, actually, I'm incidentally in the US. Uh, I I don't think that it was a hard transition to for me personally. It was like everyone around was like super helpful, super friendly, and like I'm a big city person, so New York to me was like I love Bombay, I love New York, so it was not like I was overwhelmed or something. There's no feeling like that. Coming from India, you can't get overwhelmed by people. It's like it's not the case. So it was a smooth transition. First, obviously, there are some cultural nuances that you get used to it, so a month or two to ramp up. But after that, it's just getting used to like the cold or those smaller aspects. I think America is a very meritocratic place, so I don't think so. If you do well in life, this place, this is a capitalist culture is very strong here, so you get rewarded very well if you do well in life. like if you're putting your effort and if you stand out and you have great skills, like it's not a place where like politics or something will hold you down in the short run, etc. In my case, most people, I would say, all my friends who came were quite comfortable in terms of like after a few months. Business school is actually a very good time to transition to then work here, because you go to a student life, you have like a good peer set, a lot of friends, international friends, etc. And then after that, once you graduate, you are working here, right? So that's like a step phase. You have like a student life for 2 years, you build a network, you have a bunch of friends that you build around. Obviously, it's different let's say you've been working and then directly come to work in the US. Then you'll have to start from scratch in terms of like building
Right.
and friends. So that becomes slightly more difficult, but obviously not impossible. It's just much more smoother as a student to do it.
Right. Get it. Thanks for such a wonderful advice, and thank you so much for your time as well. Like it was indeed a very insightful conversation. We got to discuss about your learnings, about your work profile, about your working hours, and how you unwind after a hectic day as well. Thanks a lot for your time. It was a very insightful conversation. If any one piece of advice which you would like to give to all the viewers, so the target audience is young qualified professionals. So if there is any one piece of advice which you'd like to give to all of us, what would it be?
I would say, um, I would say, like just reflecting back, right? I think it's things always really sort of work out as long as you focus on what's under your control. Like whatever task you have, whatever work you have, do it with the utmost dedication, and hopefully try to find something that you're really passionate about. And I think that success really comes then incrementally when you start doing things better, small steps. So my advice to you is whatever work you get to do as you start off early in your career, to like do it quite sincerely, and like things will like don't do worry too much as to like how my career will work out in 10 years or 15 years. Like uh you only in hindsight you know what really helped you, but the like working hard and like being sincere and getting things done is what really matters. And frankly, whatever you're done up to like qualifying your CA or whatever you're done, you can just leave it. Once you're done, once you're in the work environment, just it's like a fresh start, and like you get to prove yourself again, and you need to prove yourself day in day out, and that's what really matters.
Right. I think it's equally important to excel in your career as important it is to excel in your academics, because after your academic
Yeah.
journey
So
is
the thing
over,
is, once you're
you
done
get
with
into
your
professional
CADs,
life.
let's say once you're done with, let's say, your CA, and you switch to work, frankly, if you get a rank or whatever good scores, it helps you like get your first job. After that, it's all like what you do at work that matters,
Right.
right? And uh, so these are different phases, and not everyone transitions smoothly, right?
Right.
So I think the focus, like a lot of like, try not to be distracted by the noise. I would say just focus on what's under your control, which a lot of which is basically your work hours, like about how much you are concentrating, and uh, like a lot of people may drop the ball during important points of time at work. Like, so focus on the big picture, getting things right. At the same time, incrementally be there and do your best every day. That's all.
Right. Thanks a lot for your words of wisdom. I think
Sure.
it was indeed motivating as well. Thanks a lot for your time, and wish you all the
Sure.
best for all your future endeavors. Thank you so much once again.
Perfect. Thank you.